This is an email that I sent to my mother on August 2nd, 2022. I am writing this because I think I can convey this message better written than over the phone. Your husband accused me of not being mentally stable yesterday and is blaming Lawrence for all manner of things right now. The reason why we're not bringing Zora around has nothing to do with Lawrence being petty and everything to do with the abuse I've endured from him for years. I'm tired of him pretending he's not a monster and a degenerate. Zuri was telling the truth. I lied. He coerced me into lying for him on the ride home from Laplace after Zuri accused him, and I stuck with it for all these years. Why? I was scared that he would kill Zuri and Robbie. Then, after I left home, I was under constant surveillance, which made me think that there was no escaping him. He never stopped. I tried so many times to get him to stop, and he wouldn't. Many nights I woke up with him on top of me. After a while, I just gave in when he would ask because if I said no, I knew I'd just wake up with him already in progress. The times I left to go live with men I barely knew was me looking for a way out. It didn't stop until I left to go live with Lawrence 7 years ago. I guess you can say it only paused because what triggered my current suicidal thoughts and this message was me being woken up by him with his penis in his hand while I'm in the bed with Zora lying next to me. This happened the time I stayed overnight because I was too tired to drive back home. I was sleeping, so I can't remember what he said, but I do remember telling him to leave me alone. I immediately got up to pack and go back to Lafayette. I thought I had made peace with what he did. He apologized to me and Zuri last year, but then he does this. I can't risk Zuri experiencing the same things me and Zuri did. He has harassed and tried to find all kinds of flaws with Lawrence because he's jealous. He wants to be who Lawrence is to me, my lover. He's sick, and I'd be a fool to expose my daughter to him. I know he'll say that Lawrence or Zuri put me up to this and come up with all kinds of grand conspiracies. I hope you know that I wouldn't make up a lie just because I'm mad at him. I've never done it before, so why wait until I'm almost 40 to start? This started when I was 12. My back was hurting, and he offered to give me a massage. I can't remember much about that night, but he claims that I asked him to do it again the next day. I don't remember that and believed it to be true all these years. I'm not sure if that's what actually happened now. That's another reason why I never told the truth. I was ashamed because I believed that I was a willing participant in the beginning. Writing this has been the hardest thing I've done in my life. I don't know if you'll want anything to do with me after this. I completely understand if you don't. I denied you the choice to make an informed decision about him 20 years ago, and I hope one day you can forgive me. I am tired of him harassing me and Lawrence. I am tired of pretending that I love him when the truth is I loathe him. I am tired of him acting like a victim when he's an apex predator. If you have doubts, you can ask. And I'm not going to say who because they asked me to keep the name out of it. But this is one of my high school friends who I told, and she was the only person I told about what was going on with me and my sister. Other than Lawrence, who I just told 2 weeks ago, she's the only person who has heard the truth from me. So I wrote everything I have to say down because I totally suck at public speaking and storytelling in spoken form, but I am a pretty good writer. So I'm making this video now because I can no longer be silent about the abuse my sister and I endured at the hands of my father. I'm making these videos because he keeps showing up at my sister's job even though she's made it clear that she wants nothing to do with him. And the one thing he fears is the truth. He prides himself on being a master manipulator and con artist. He lives a life cloaked in a shroud of lies and illusions. He is a monster and a predator, and the only way to stop that type of person is exposure because secrecy is a form of protection for them. Another reason why I'm going public is because I have been talking to family members and friends of mine, and they have revealed things about him that I was unaware of. With each revelation, I became more disgusted and enraged. Allegedly, my sister and I aren't his only victims. I had an opportunity in 2002 to tell the truth and put an end to his abuse, and I didn't. I'll probably regret it for the rest of my life. I lied for so long in an attempt to convince others and myself that he was the best father in the world. The truth is, he's the exact opposite of what a good father should be. These videos are my way of correcting a mistake I made when I was 18. It's not just about exposing him, but also about atonement and healing for me. So I was sexually abused by my father from the ages of 12 all the way up until I was 30 years old. And literally, it didn't stop until the day I left Baldwin, Louisiana to go live with the man who's now my husband in Atlanta. And in these videos, I'm going to be going through everything that I can remember to the best of my abilities. I'm going to try to give as much detail as possible, but I am heavily traumatized. I've experienced sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse. Um, and then on top of that, I've had 3 concussions in my life. And I also used to smoke a lot of green. So when that's a combination for somebody with a lot of memory issues, but I'm going to try my best to tell everything to the best of my abilities. So that's it for part 1. And now it's on to part 2. I'm going to talk about the reason why I'm even doing this and what prompted me to get to the point to where I'm ready to just put all my business on blast. What happens in this house, part 2. The reason why I'm talking about this, the reason why I can't let the past stay in the past is because my father violated me again in June of 2022. I came back to Louisiana after living in Atlanta and Philadelphia for 8 years. After my daughter was born, I started missing home, and I wanted her to get to know my family. My father apologized to me and my sister when I was pregnant in 2021, and he told us that he was going to therapy. Couple that with the fact that he hadn't tried to assault me during the times I had visited in previous years, I felt that it was safe to go home. I thought that we could leave the past behind us and move forward. I was sorely mistaken. We left Philly and came to Louisiana in May of 2022. Our initial plan was to stay for the summer and then go back to Philly in the fall. I talked to my parents and they were happy to have us staying with them. Because where they live doesn't have 1 gigabyte internet, we told them that we would eventually get a place in Lafayette. The first couple of weeks we were at my parents' home was all good. Then my father's jealousy started coming out. He was increasingly antagonistic and hostile towards my husband. After being there for a month, we got a place in Lafayette after landing a huge client. As soon as we got the payment, we found a place in Lafayette and then moved out the next day. In our haste to move out, we left quite a few things behind. So the day after we moved into our new place, I decided to go back and get our stuff. Since I had to pass through New Iberia to get to my parents' house, I decided that I would go visit my sister and her kids before going back to Baldwin since they hadn't met my daughter yet. I stayed way longer than I intended to, so it was late when I got to my parents' house. I was tired after gathering the things we left and chose to stay overnight because my baby was cranky and I didn't want to make a 45-minute drive with a crying infant. Around 5 a.m., I woke up with the covers pulled off of me, and I see my father standing next to the bed holding his erect eggplant in his hand. He said something to the effect of, let him get some just this one time. He can't help himself. I was so shocked, confused, and disgusted that he would do this as my 8 month old daughter lay next to me. I told him no and then got up, packed the car, and then went home. While I was loading the car, he apologized and said he didn't know what came over him. I went home and didn't talk to him or my mother for 2 weeks afterwards. When the 4th of July got close, my mama called asking why they hadn't heard from me. I couldn't tell her the truth, so I just lied and said that I had been busy and traveling with my husband. And we did go on a trip to Dallas, but it was only for a couple of days. She invited me to come to the house and stay for the 4th of July weekend, which I reluctantly agreed to do because I had already told her I didn't have plans and couldn't lie my way out of it. Plus, at that point, I hadn't told her the truth about my father. I still felt like it was a secret I should take to my grave back then. So I go back with my daughter to their house, and that is something I'll never forgive myself for. I was so accustomed to my father doing something fucked up, him apologizing, and then trying to move on as if nothing happened. It took him and my husband falling out for the hold he had on my mind to finally start loosening. I was getting my daughter ready to go to the cookout at my aunt's house, and I was talking to my husband on speakerphone while getting her dressed. My father comes in the room and he says something about my daughter being nappy headed. I don't remember exactly what it was he said, but he was like just joking around or whatever. And then he goes to the car. My husband then abruptly ends our call, and then he calls my father and curses him out. He tells him he'll never see our daughter again and to never call her nappy headed. So my father comes back in the house yelling and screaming at me about what my husband did. I was still in the house and I had no idea what was going on. After that, I didn't have a moment of peace. I went home the next day, but the remainder of the time I was around my father, he constantly harassed me and talked shit about my husband. He tried to poison my mind against him in the same manner he did with the other men I had been with. He tried to convince me that my husband had a bunch of secrets that he was hiding from me, and he tried to imply that his other children were saying fucked up things about him. He tried to get me to confirm his worst thoughts about my husband. This lasted for hours. I went to bed and woke up to more of the same. The more he talked, the more I started comparing his character to my husband's. And the more I compared, the worse he looked. So I stopped engaging with him. The harassment continued all the way from Baldwin to Lafayette, and that's like a 45-minute drive. I didn't say a word. He kept asking if I would let Lawrence keep our daughter from him. Silence. More lies about my husband's character. Silence. Accusations of him abusing me and giving me 2 concussions. More silence. So, about that, I'm going to pause and explain. So, I had 2 concussions, one in 2018 and one in 2020. And during this ride, he just had this epiphany and came to the conclusion that I didn't hit my head on the sink or fall from a platform. No, it was my husband who hit me and gave me the concussions. This is the kind of stuff that he does constantly. Just comes up with all kinds of grand lies. And as I'm doing this video, you'll continue to see just how prolific of a liar he is. So when he dropped me off, I didn't even say goodbye. In that moment, I decided that I was done with him forever. For the next few weeks, I was deeply depressed and suicidal. I was constantly beating myself up for bringing my daughter back around my father after what he did. I couldn't sleep, and the only time I had an appetite was when I smoked. One night, I decided that I was going to end it all. I had a bunch of insulin saved from when I was pregnant, and I decided that I would inject it all at once. I was sitting on the sofa around 3 a.m., crying and trying to work up the nerve to go through with it. My husband got up to go to the kitchen to make the baby a bottle, and he instantly sensed something was wrong with me. He hugged me and then went to give our daughter her bottle. And when she went back to sleep, he came and sat next to me on the sofa and he held me while I cried. He asked me what was wrong, and I told him that I needed to tell him the truth about my father. He asked me, did he sexually abuse you? And I told him yes. And then I told him about what happened the night I went to my parents' house to get our things. I had never seen him that angry before. Well, he was never mad at me, though, just my father. If he broke up with me and took our daughter, I wouldn't have even fought him because he would have been justified, in my opinion. Instead, he started encouraging me to tell my mother the truth. What happens in this house? Part 3. For about 2 weeks, I went back and forth in my mind and with Lawrence about how to tell my mama the truth. Finally, I settled on writing her an email, which is what I read to y'all in the first video. After I sent it, it was about a week before she saw it because she doesn't check her email often. When she finally read it, she called me to talk about it, and it was easily one of the most uncomfortable conversations I've ever had in my life. She sounded like she was hurt and confused, and she asked me a lot of questions like why I hadn't said anything before now. And I told her that I had been scared. You know, my father was somebody who used to brag all the time about how he beat a triple murder charge in the 70s. And then he would say stuff about him having a personal graveyard in Whiskey Bay. So yeah, I didn't say anything and I lied for so long because I felt that that's the only way that me and my sister would stay alive because he portrayed himself to be a very dangerous killer my entire childhood. So yeah, that's why I didn't say anything. And then she asked me to tell her about specific things that he had done. And I couldn't bring myself to describe in detail the things that he did while violating me. Like she wanted me to like describe like the actual acts as if, me saying that he was abusing me wasn't enough. And, so that kind of threw me for a loop. And then she asked me about this time when I was either 18 or 19, and she walked in on him giving me a massage while he had an erection. And I told her the truth, which was my back was hurting and he was massaging me, but I didn't know what was going on behind me. I didn't know that he was hard. Um, and when she saw that, she went and she stayed in her room and she was upset all day. And my father tried, convincing her that nothing was happening. And I think he told her it was just morning wood or something. And so then he got me and convinced me to talk to her, to tell her that nothing happened, which was technically the truth, but like, but who does that? Who gets erect while touching their daughter? That's just nasty. So I told her that um I was only getting a massage, which is yeah, that's what I told her. And this was early in the morning and I really wasn't expecting him to do anything because this was in the living room. And typically, when he would assault me or my sister, it would happen in our bedroom. So after I told her about that story, when she asked about it, I told her that I had been feeling suicidal again. And then she told me that she was sorry and she suggested that I get help. And she was like, you can talk to me or whatever, and said some other stuff which I can't remember right now. But I walked away, feeling relieved, and I thought that she would confront my father and talk to him about what I told her and confront him about what he did. But she never said anything. And I didn't realize that she never said anything to him until like over a year later. What Happens in This House, Part 4. The essay started when I was 12, but my sister and my other siblings had experienced other forms of abuse long before that started. I was talking to my sister one time after I told her about the email I sent to our mama, and she said, we were groomed, right? Before then, that had never even occurred to me, but she was right. He had done several things to us when we were young children. My sister reminded me how he would play with our butts, grabbing and pinching them. And when my breasts started developing at the age of 9, he would grab them and play with them also. He normalized us being touched on our private parts when we were young so that when he started to SA us, it wouldn't feel abnormal or raise any red flags. This also explains why we were isolated from the surrounding community and our peers. We weren't allowed to go to other people's houses, with the exception of one friend who lived on the same street as us. The only children we got to be around on a regular basis outside of school were our cousins. My father was in prison when I was a toddler, and he got out when I was 5 years old. We were living with my grandparents in Sharonton at the time. Within 2 years, we moved to our own home, and he immediately started telling us what happens in this house stays in this house. He also started telling us to never trust the police and that they were not our friends, even if they pretended to be nice. I was only 7 years old. Why did I need to know anything about law enforcement? My sister reminded me about how after we moved to Baldwin, kids in the neighborhood would come over to our house to try to play with us, but he would run them off. Another way he groomed us was by making himself seem as if he was a bigger than life criminal mastermind, and I believe he did that so we would have an appropriate amount of fear for him. He told us all about the people he had killed. He used to brag about how he beat a triple murder charge in the 70s by using witness intimidation. He would tell us stories about how he would run long cons with his partner from Opelousas, who was passe blonde, and because he looked like white, they were able to easily fool other white people. He would also abuse us physically and verbally. He would hit us with objects like hangers, electric cords, the tilt wand on the blinds, and even a crawfish paddle. I remember even one time he threw a skillet at my head, a cast iron skillet. I got one of the worst beatings ever after he found out that I was eating pork at school and I was only 8 years old. He had the cafeteria workers spying on us for him and asked them to let him know if we ate any pork. And whoever it is that was spying on him, if you see this video, I wish you all the worst things in life ever. I was eating ham for breakfast at school in the mornings. I didn't eat at home. Every morning we'd get a small drop biscuit, a scoop of eggs, and a piece of ham. The biscuits and eggs weren't enough to fill me up, so I started eating the ham. When he found out, he was enraged and acted like I committed the ultimate act of betrayal. He was a Muslim at the time, so it was a really big deal to him. For my punishment for eating the ham, he stripped me naked, tied all four of my limbs down, and beat me with an extension cord. I had welts and cuts on my back, butt, and legs for weeks afterwards. I tell this story because it shows the origins of my fear of him, and it also shows how he used surveillance as a method of control. It made me feel as if there was nowhere I could go and be safe from him. This is going to be important later on in this story because for years I was under constant surveillance and monitoring. I didn't even feel safe writing my thoughts. I had gotten a diary one Christmas with a lock on it when I was 12 years old. I wrote about a boy that I had a crush on in my diary, and there were like a lot of entries about him. So one day, my father breaks the lock and he reads my diary in front of me. He proceeded to tease me about my crush for weeks. I felt betrayed and violated, and as if even my most private thoughts wouldn't be safe. So it was best to keep everything inside and to not share them with anyone or write them down. I was a prisoner of my own mind. The essay began with a test when I was 11 and in the sixth grade. Then a year later, when I was 12, he went all the way and it didn't stop until I was 30 years old. One night, he came into my room while I was asleep. He put his hands in my panties and started fondling me. I woke up but didn't open my eyes because I was scared and confused. I was trying to figure out why he was doing that to me. The next day when I went to school, I couldn't concentrate at all. I constantly replayed in my mind what happened the night before. I was trying to figure out for days afterwards. By the time I was 11, I came to the conclusion that telling my mama anything about my father was pointless because she never did anything to protect us from him in the past, so I didn't see this being any different. I thought about telling my teacher or saying something to my friend, but I had been indoctrinated to not say anything about what happened at home, so I kept it to myself. A couple of months passed and it hadn't occurred again, so I assumed that it was a one time thing. I was wrong because a year later he started to SA me and did it for 18 years nonstop. What happens in this house? Part 5. It was a cold winter night in December 1996. I don't remember many details, but I'll try my best to share what I can. I had been diagnosed with scoliosis a few months prior, and I would be in excruciating pain a lot, especially when I would go to sleep. I woke up one night because my back was hurting. My father was up also, so I asked him to massage my back for me. Ever since I started having problems with my back, he would be the one who would give me relief by massaging me. He knew a bunch of stuff about pressure points and meridians and used his knowledge to give me some relief. I would take off my top, lay on my stomach, and then get massaged. The same thing happened that night, but I was wearing a nightgown, so I only had panties on while being massaged. He started off massaging me the way he normally did, but after he was done with my back, he made me turn over and started massaging my legs. I'm not going to go into further detail because that will basically be CP. Plus, the details are fuzzy after that point. I can't remember much of anything from that part of my life. It's all a blur. Several years later, before I went to college, I asked him to stop. He was shocked because he thought that I liked what he was doing. I can't ever remember a time when I enjoyed what he did to me. Never. But he told me that I came to him the next day and asked him to do it again. He was speaking as if his 12-year-old daughter seduced him. I couldn't remember anything at the time, so I believed him. I blamed myself and felt so guilty and ashamed. I carried those feelings inside of me as if they were my organs. They didn't start to go away until I was almost 40. There are a lot of things that I can't remember from the time the abuse started, but there are some things that I can remember quite vividly. I remember there came a time where the frequency of the SA decreased. I was hoping that maybe he was getting bored and would eventually stop. Boy, was I wrong. I found out why he backed up from me one night when I woke up and saw him on the floor on top of my sister. I was crushed. I think my sister was only 11 at the time. I can also remember hearing him threatening my sister when he would try to assault her, but she refused. She has always been braver than me. She would resist while I always folded. She spoke out and told other adults what was going on when I was too scared to say anything. Her fighting spirit is why he resorted to using methods to subdue her so she couldn't resist. My sister told me that she woke up one night to him standing over her while spraying some kind of liquid in her face. And she said that she would wake up sometimes with her legs tied to the bedpost with pantyhose, but she had no recollection of when it happened or what occurred overnight. I remember that when I was in the eighth and ninth grade, he would hypnotize me. He said that he was doing it because he wanted me to have a large climax. I had forgotten all about the hypnosis until about 6 months ago. I had been asking myself repeatedly for a year, why did I lie so much and why was I so afraid to speak up? Then one day, while I was cleaning up, the memories about the hypnosis came back to me. I believe he hypnotized me so that he could give my subconscious mind instructions to never reveal the truth about what he was doing to me and my sister. I remember having a miscarriage when I was 16 because he got me pregnant. I remember how he would make me stay home on Sundays and would SA me in the bed he shared with my mama, or how he would do it anytime he knew she would be gone for longer than an hour. I remember one of my younger brothers walking in on him on top of me, and he told him that we were just playing and wrestling. I remember how he brought terry cloth rompers for me and my sister to walk around the house in so he could openly lust after us. Mine was yellow and hers was pink. I remember my first suicide attempt when I was 16-year old. My grades started falling and I went from making A's and B's to C's and D's. When he saw that my grades weren't good, he told me that I had to drop out of band until my grades improved. I was devastated, and the thought of not having band as an outlet anymore made it feel as if my life wouldn't be worth living. Band greatly reduced the amount of time I spent at home, and the more time I spent at school, the less chances he had to SA me. So I took an entire bottle of Tylenol and swallowed them. He found me in just enough time to save my life. Afterwards, I spent 2 weeks in a mental health facility. When I went back to school, no one was aware of what happened because, after all, what happens in this house stays in this house. What Happens in This House, Part 6. I graduated from high school in 2002 and attended college at Southern University in Baton Rouge. I was looking forward to going away for school because I thought it would be the end of my abuse. I thought I'd be able to leave it all behind, but I was wrong. 2 weeks before I started college, one of my aunts picked me up and brought me to her house so she could get me everything I needed for my dorm room. I was supposed to stay until it was time for me to report to campus, but my stay ended abruptly when my father called me to tell me that he was coming to get me and that I needed to come home. He wouldn't say why over the phone. When he arrived, I don't remember what he told my aunt and uncle about why he was cutting my trip short. When I was in the garage by myself, he came in and told me that my sister went to our grandma and told her about what he had been doing to us. Then he coerced me into taking his side and started talking about how he wanted to unalive my sister and her boyfriend. As I was writing this part, I stopped to call my sister and ask her if it was okay to tell her part of the story, and I just learned that what I was told about this was a lie. My father told me that our mama caught my sister and her boyfriend on the back porch being intimate. He said that my sister overheard him on the phone with the DA's office trying to get statutory grape charges pressed against her boyfriend. So she went to our grandma and told her what was happening so he wouldn't get her boyfriend arrested. It's like the hits just keep on coming with this dude. I'm in the midst of making these videos and I'm still finding out about the lies he's told and the reprehensible things he's done. So my sister said is that what really happened was that our mother did find her on the back porch with her boyfriend, but they weren't undressed. They weren't having sex. They weren't even doing that at that time. And she said the reason she went to our grandma is because she went to our mama several times to tell her what was happening and she wouldn't do anything. So then my sister said that my grandma came over and she talked to my mama and asked her what was going on. And our mama told our grandma that my sister had never said anything to her before. So that's the truth behind that story. My first semester of college was wild as fuck. And before I get into this story, like I realized this is gonna probably make me look really bad and make me look like a hoe. But if you couldn't tell by now, I really don't care about what the public perception about me is. This is my life, and there's nothing I can change about it now. And even the parts that don't put me in the best light, I'm putting it out there. But anyway, back to the story. I had been sheltered and isolated my entire life. I wasn't allowed to date until I was 18, and I arranged to go on my very first date on my 18th birthday. That's just how anxious I was to get out there and started dating and doing stuff with men. When I got on campus with no adult supervision, I went dick crazy. I had a boyfriend, but he didn't live on campus, so I didn't see him very often. I met this older guy on campus one day and he gave me his number. I liked how he looked and he had good conversation, so I decided to go to his apartment to hang out when he invited me. We started doing our thing, and before you know it, I would be going to his place 2 to 3 times a week. After about a month, he asked me to do group activities with him and one of his friends. I was super curious, and his friend was fine, so I agreed. I liked the novelty of it so much, and it was the first time I ever felt in control of my sexuality. So the three of us would hook up weekly. Then, towards the end of the semester, they abruptly stopped answering my phone calls. Somehow, some way, my father found out about what I had been doing and he went ballistic. He told me that the guys that I had been hooking up with were secretly recording me and selling the tapes to their frat brothers. He claimed that him and his crew broke up the operation and that he confiscated the tapes. From that moment on, I was under constant surveillance by him. He had people all over campus reporting to him about me. If he found out that a guy spent some time around me, I would get a call asking about who he was. Every time I would leave campus, he would call asking me where I was going, why I was leaving campus, and who I would be with. And once I got a cell phone, anytime I didn't answer, he would accuse me of having relations with somebody. The SA paused for a moment my first semester, but after he found out about the group activities, he ramped it up and was coming to Baton Rouge all the time. He tried getting close to everyone I knew and tried to come across as the cool parent. He would go to parties and clubs with me and my friends, and he even got close to several of them. If there was a guy I liked, he would do things like find out their driver's license number or home address and recite it to them to scare them away. There was no escaping him. He would call me every night to talk about what he had seen on the tapes of me, and he was insanely jealous. He wanted to know why I was never that enthusiastic with him. He made it his mission in life to get me to act like I wanted him. He started to take me to XXX stores to buy toys to use on me, and he would get a room at the Motel 6 in Port Allen when he'd pick me up to go home for the weekend so he could SA me using the toys. He would stay on the phone with me for hours asking me questions about what he saw on the tapes. I think one of my roommates might have heard the things he said because she seemed like she was nervous every time she was around him. I had asked him to stop multiple times when I was in college, but that seemed to make him double down on the abuse because he felt like he was old and experienced with me, like the ones he saw on the tapes of me with other men. He got to experience it one time. He took me to a motel and gave me a drink that I think was spiked with ecstasy. It was the only time I didn't just lay there like a rock. For him, it was one of the best days of his life. I felt more violated than and disgusted than ever. What happens in this house? Part 7. Okay, so for this video, which is probably going to be the last one, I have a list of things that I'm just going to read because my hand is starting to cramp with all the writing and it's getting to be a little tedious. And plus, I think I've gone into, enough deep detail. So now I'm just going to give you, a more condensed version of some of the things that I can remember happening to me. All right, so number one, there's these street pharmacists he used to sell bootleg movies and music to, and he pimped me out to them. It was three of them in one night. This is where the money to buy my mini refrigerator from my dorm room came from. He never gave me the money and he purchased the refrigerator himself. It was $150. I believe he made more than that from pimping me, but he kept the majority of it for himself. And yeah, that night is fuzzy. I don't remember a lot of details, but I do remember that he had expressed some regrets about it and went back and forth in his mind about whether or not he should get me to do it again. So, yeah. All right, so number 2. Anytime I would go to stay the night at my boyfriend's house, he would make up an excuse for why he needed to use the car, and then I couldn't go. One time, he even walked there and knocked on the window, then made me come home. Um, Number 3, he was jealous of every man I was ever with. He would make up these fake scenarios that made it seem like my life was in imminent danger if I didn't leave them immediately. I broke up with them abruptly, thinking that something horrible would happen if I stayed. So, this happened a total of 2.5 times. And the reason I say a half time is because the last time it happened, I didn't leave. So the first time I was with this guy from Philadelphia, this was back in 2012, and I went there to go live with him. And let's be clear, the guy wasn't a great guy. He was very controlling and he had his manipulative ways also. But my father told me that I was in danger. He told me that there are other women that he had been with who came up missing and nobody knows where the women are. And then he made it seem like he was into like some type of like evil spiritual stuff. And some woman who was his spiritual advisor was gonna like put a root on me or hex me or something like that. And he made it seem as if my life was in imminent danger. So I abruptly broke up with him and then came back to Louisiana after I had been there like a month and a half or something like that. The second time he did it was when I was with this guy that I met online, and I went to go be with him in New Jersey. And this guy, he was El Salvadoran. So he told me I had stayed with him for maybe about 2 or 3 months. And after I had been up there for a while, he started telling me that he found out that the guy was secretly working as a mule for a Mexican cartel and that he owed them some money and they were looking for him. And I didn't need to be around him when they found him. So I left him and I went to go stay with a friend in Atlanta for a while after that. And I'll tell you more about the last time he tried that further down the list because I have it written down. All right, so this one is a doozy. So he made up a fake spiritual advisor he called Miss Rudy, who would pass messages of a spiritual nature to me. He'd use information that he learned from spying on me and those around me and make it seem like this Miss Rudy person had some kind of psychic ability to know what was going on with my life. One of the things Miss Rudy would insist on was me acting like I was crazy about him and wanting him as much as he wanted me in order to help him move on eventually. I have emails he wrote as this persona. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to stop right here and get them so y'all can see them. Pause to read. So, as you can see from those emails, he went to great lengths to manipulate me and to control me and to try to get me to somehow be okay with what was going on. According to my sister, our mother walked in on him in action with her twice, and she did nothing. All he had to do was deny it enough for her to be able to lie to herself. Let's see what's next. He would act like he had spies everywhere and was a part of some secret network. He would do weird things with his hands to make it seem like he was trying to send secret hand signals to someone when we were out in public. He essentially ran a long con on me so that I wouldn't tell anyone the truth about him. He constantly talked about having Zuri, Azizi, and Rabi either unalived or set up with contraband in their cars so they'd go to prison. He had the landline at home and my cell phone tapped and would regularly listen to my conversations. For years, he lied and made it seem like there was a serious threat to my life because he and his secret crew took down the people who were taping me having relations without my knowledge. And that's why he had to constantly monitor my whereabouts and my activities. He would constantly ask me questions about my intimate life with the men I was with. He felt entitled to every detail, and there is no question that he thought was too invasive. And this is the part where I was telling you earlier about the point five when he would try to make it seem like I was in danger with the man I was with. So when we first moved to Philadelphia, he tried to make it seem like he had some kind of information that tied Lawrence to this big peddle ring. It was connected, and it was during that time where like it was a lot of people getting busted. I think at Penn State, I believe it was. So I lost it. Damn near had a breakdown, and I called my mother, devastated. After she talked to him, he walked it back and said that it was someone who was connected to Lawrence's boss who was caught up in it, and he got some bad info. And that really put a strain on me and Lawrence's relationship for a while because he just couldn't understand, why I would even think that he was capable of being involved in something like that. And that's what he did. He would try to keep me isolated from everybody, the men in my life, the friends, my community, even other family members. He wanted me all to himself. So this is the last video, and I hope that me sharing this inspires other people who's going through similar situations to reach out and seek help and to expose these people. Don't carry water for them, don't protect them, let the world know. What happens in this house, part 8. Okay, y'all, so I thought I was done on the last video, but then after I finished, I remembered that I forgot to mention, one of the major driving forces behind me even doing this. Um, and I have to include things that other people told me. Now, all of this stuff is alleged, and I'm saying that because a lot of you know just how litigious my father is. So this isn't anything that I've experienced firsthand, but um, for the past couple of years, I have been, sharing the email that I wrote to my mother with other family members, and some of them have told me some rather disturbing things about him. And I'm just going to share some of the things that they've said to me. So, my sister would say all the time, like, I just have the feeling that we're not the only ones. Like, I know we're not the only ones that he's done this to. And she is correct. So, I talked to one family member, and they told me that he was accused of doing the same thing he did to me and my sister to an older cousin of mine, and that cousin is no longer alive. Um, I have another cousin who told me that just a few years ago, maybe 3, maybe 4 years ago, he was talking about inappropriate things about him, about his intimate life with her. And she was like, who does that? What kind of uncle talks about that type of stuff with his niece? So there was that. Um, and then um, there's the matter of my younger brother, whom I have suspicions he may also have experienced the same thing that me and my sister have allegedly. So I have to tell y'all this story. So back in 2021, when I was pregnant, I remember my father calling me one day and telling me that he got in a fight with one of my uncles. And he said the reason that they got into a fight is because my uncle called him a PDF, a predator. And at the moment um no, not at the moment, before I go into that part. And the reason my uncle called him that is because apparently he said that my youngest brother went to our aunt and he told her about what my father was doing to him, and abusing him the same way that my sister and I were abused. And at the moment, I didn't really pay it much mind because of who it was that was saying that. And I never really took anything he said seriously. But after I came back home and I ruminate a lot, and I was just thinking about stuff, and I started remembering a lot of things that I had forgotten, especially since I very rarely smoke anymore. So, like, stuff is starting to come back to me, and I started remembering conversations that my father had where he told me that he was curious about, what intimacy with a man was like. And he said that he was didn't really want to try it, but he was just, just curious about, what would make somebody want to do that. And I always found it odd that he would tell me stuff like that. But I do remember him saying several times that, sometimes he would wonder about if he could ever do something like that. So I started piecing that together with what he told me happened back in 2021. And then it seemed like every time I spoke to a member of my family, they're telling me about how my parents are keeping my little brother isolated. They're not letting him go to Sharonton, um, or they're not letting him go out and do different activities. I even had a cousin who wanted to let him stay at her house for a few days, and he called my uncle and told my uncle about all kinds of maladaptive behaviors that my brother engages in, and it made my uncle not want to let him stay over, so he wouldn't let my cousin come pick him up so he could stay at the house. And when I put all this together, it sure does seem like they're trying to keep my brother isolated because he's being abused also, and they don't want him to be able to get the help that he needs. And that is another major driving factor behind um why I'm even doing all these videos, because I'm not just thinking about myself. I really am concerned for my brother, and I don't really know what to do about this situation. And I'm hoping maybe some way, somehow, that me making these videos can help him stop experiencing what's going on, um, allegedly. So yeah, this is the last video for real. Thank you to everybody who reached out to me and offered your love and your support. I really appreciate it. I wasn't really expecting that. I went into this actually with no expectations, but I was more prepared for negative feedback instead of all the warmth and the love that I've been shown. So thank you to everybody who's reaching out. And once again, if you're experiencing something like this and you see this story, I really do hope that it inspires you to not sit in silence and to just take it and to do whatever you can to either get away or to get help and to not hide. And I want you to know that you shouldn't be ashamed of what's happened to you. You shouldn't feel guilty. The person who should feel shame and guilt are the people who are harming you. That should be their burden to carry, not yours. So don't do like I did and hold these secrets in for so long. These people only have the power that you give them, the power that you allow them to have. So please, if something's happening, speak up and try your best to get some help so somebody can help you put an end to it. All right, so that's all. Thank you for watching, and yeah.